Well, hello everyone. Here, show you right here is the imaginable America, for freedom, and this right here, I went and painted a picture right here of for Donald Trump, President Donald Trump right here, and you see right here is I went ahead and include right here you're using illustration work based on for digital designing and for any source of digital software, and you see right here is I went ahead and it drew Donald Trump as like if he were to be making a speech some kind, and just looking at the paper, and the latest paper that I do have would have been published right around January the 12th, and so I don't have all the latest news and updates about from it says right here for the Washington's like the Washington Post or anything like that. But while I was working on this, I know that maybe that later on I can maybe look into doing some InDesign work as to where that based on for anybody who's going to be a U.S. citizen, anything about where you think that the country could be going in the next 4 years or so into the future, about digital technology, about how it can improve the ability to where anybody who wants to read any books or articles or anything like that based on using digital technology. And some may say that it's really about maybe controlling about maybe for what you see now. And I know like with anybody that if most of us have tried that before to where we can share each other's screen, and then you would be able to look at the person's screen for what they demonstrate, and one of those will be as to where the tools that they use, and if they want to do any editing to any photos or maybe a work of painting, and then they're going to go and open it up, save it to like as a GIF file, and then like with me though, that with this painting that I'll be putting up, of course, on my Behance page. But still, though, any source of editing that's done with anything related to using digital software, and with the digital software, that do people think that it's about making changes like you compare it to the original, and then from what's already from what's not there already, but still that going from backwards to moving forward, stuff like that. But anyway, but you see right here is a painting that I went and put together right here of for Donald Trump right here. And one of the reasons why I wanted to go ahead and do this video right here is talking about my work, though, is that back whenever I was in the first and second grade, and I know that most of us can remember saying the Pledge of Allegiance whenever they were a kid, that every morning whenever they get up and get up ready for school, and then they go to school, and before class would begin, that they wanted you to sing the Pledge of Allegiance. The gentlemen will hold their hands over their hearts, and it would say that I think the Star Spangled Banner or something like that. But I pledge allegiance to the flag. But really that we got quite a bit used to doing that for about maybe 30 seconds, and anything that's related to the USA Today or Washington Post, and sometimes any student would maybe think is to where really they don't have a whole lot of time to be reading everything about what's going on. But talk about for the plan for the president has announced, doesn't meet the standards that the best of his no must carry. There are meeting that every president in the past 4 decades has met. And so let's just say that for like President Trump, though, that whenever he before he takes office, so that the things that he's going to be working on, and then for the annual, in an unusual report of the incoming president, that the federal government's top ethics official Wednesday joined a wave of ethics watching. Watching dogs announced the President-elect Donald Trump's plan to retain his financial interest in his global real estate, and then press inspire. So I guess he's whenever he takes office, I guess if he's going to be maybe be working on helping people where they would be able to afford properties. I don't know if that's going to be maybe the case maybe later on in the summertime, to where he's going to work it out to where real estate becomes affordable, and like anything about any healthcare, like anything about the Importance Act or something like that. But you talk about for President-elect Trump, though, is that I talk a lot about 2018 because that being a student, that would be around the time that I would say is to where, I have something to know about job research or anything about careers goes. But let's just say that with this work right here, if this was supposed to be like maybe like I mentioned a number of times, if it was supposed to be like a history project, and I start working on something, and I know that, like with anybody, that you start working on something, and let's just say 4 months later, and then that because here lately I've been having dreams every now and then about my work, that whenever my work is published, maybe like on the online site, maybe in the classroom or maybe anywhere, to where other people are looking at it, other people that may have control about what they want to see out of it, maybe if they want to change, do anything in Photoshop, but this right here would be a painting that I put together using Illustrator. So if this was right here was related to a history project, maybe related to a kids, friend of mine, or maybe if it's any other kids that I may know, that if it's supposed to be a history project about the president that we have now, and then talking about from what year, or so that they passed a bill or anything about about that, if it's going to be right around Martin Luther King Day or something like that. And like anybody that may say that if anything about history projects, that you paint a picture and then they want you to maybe write about maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs about is toward it, for about the country, and knowing about for the kids. It's like that anything that they learned about, especially for English lessons, and in sentence fragments, and then learning the typical words, a sentence fragment, stuff like that. But anyway, I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit just right here, just so that way we can see this right here. But I include this right here for Imaginable America, and I use that word, a phrase, as to where that for Imaginable America. And if anybody wants us to, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, really, about the country for what you imagine in the near future. And I'll use right here as my artwork as an example, because that I feel is toward that almost everything that I do is all make-believe. It's all made up until all of a sudden, somebody else gets another opinion, and then they become interested in it. So it seems like at the time that you're like, more toward, what would the president say necessarily about what you do, and for anything for what you do as using digital software. And some that may say that, using digital software, it basically means nearly 100% of the time, which it's not really accurate, but still, it's about basically about using the programs and anything related to that, maybe some things that maybe cannot be changed, but just they kind of look at as to where anything about correcting any sorts of mistakes. And I also want to point this out right here to anybody that have right here is the artist name, and then we have right here was my name. And let's just say that most of us have had our experience where we sign our name on something, but let's just say if you're not happy with the way it's printed, and then you can go back, and like with digital software, though, you could be able to go back and change it, like if you want it in cursive, or if you want to see it in maybe like another source of a language or something, anything such as. And I'm trying, like, usually with like digital software, I think that it would be good to be used for that if you're going to be signing your name, or maybe putting a date on there, that there may be some requirements about digital software to where that you would have to sign it and have it visible a certain way between the blue pen and then the black pen, or maybe the red pen, or maybe the gold pen, or something like that. So different ways about how digital software works. And I know with me, though, going out and go voting too, that they ask for a signature. And let's just say that that they may say, well, if there's been a time to where that you bring your own pen, or like, yeah, a lot of times anybody who's going to be going out to vote, that they ask you to where to bring your own pen just in case if one is not provided. But each and every time I have gone out to go vote, that they have provided pens, there. And what was the reason? Maybe because that, the forms that they would not be able to read, that there's a certain type of ink or so that they use just be able for it to be readable. And then this seems pretty aggravating to anybody that, yeah, that you would think that all pens are the same, and you would think all papers are the same, or maybe you would think that all bookmarks are the same, and maybe citizens on like anything about a driver's license or maybe a social security number or anything like that. But still, that for our protection, though, that for a lot of this digital software, that still, though, that if anybody wants us to, whenever you think about this, do you necessarily think about for security reasons? And I'm like, well, before we go to step 5, and step 5 would be maybe is a promotion or maybe a conversion or anything like that, that also to know about whose image this painting is recognized by. This is Donald Trump, your President-elect Donald Trump here, and the way I put this together right here is to we're talking about imaginable America. And if anybody were warned to where, yeah, imaginable America, what is that supposed to mean? I'm like, yeah, the type of name that I gave it is to where that anything about what you imagine that could be coming in the near future. And one of those would be is to where, yeah, that I was not doing not too much studies whenever I was working on this. So if anybody may warrant to where that if you wind up getting a few things correct, or maybe if you get a few things wrong also. But still, though, that you may have heard that before, to where that each time that you start working a puzzle, or maybe you start solving like a crossword puzzle, or maybe a painting, a watercolor painting, that they would usually say something like "have fun." And sometimes anybody that may say is to where I don't know if it's really about the fun, or if it's really about is to where explore. Please, explore the different things for what you can do based on using this digital software. Using the world of digital technology. And I was also thinking about a movie that in particular talk about digital designing. And I was also thinking about for like, yeah, for StarCon or so, or the Imaginable or something, where this a guy like he goes he travels through time nearly 40 years into the future. So that would be maybe about the year 2040, 43, something like that, year 2043, to where computers control the universe. And this idea just kind of came to mind. I've been thinking about this idea for a couple of days now, about I don't know if it's a movie or if it's just what you call a story, but based on special effects and based on imaginable digital work, anything about what you call artistic, to where that a lot of what the audiences would see about the motion action figures is like what they see is all coming from what the actor, what the artist sees. So let's just say if I'm the artist and I start painting out for what I see, and then the only way that you will be able to see it is just by what you call is like I share my screen and I'm able to show you a little bit about what I'm demonstrating. So if anybody will warrant to where that, yeah, that while that they are watching this video and then they start seeing something, they start seeing things, and maybe you would only be able to see until that you decide to share it with somebody else. And like with anybody, that if you share your screen with somebody else, and chances are that they would look thorough at it, they would look more into it, maybe if they see a little bit more of the details. So you have right here with the digital designing work, and for freedom, and then for imaginable America right here, and then you have right here for citizen. So if anybody says, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" Like, yes, I am. And if I for artist name, and then for Matthew McGuire. So if anybody will warrant, or yeah, that if you're going to be have right here is if anybody warns us that, yeah, that this right here will be President Trump right here, and if he were to be given a speech. And I know that I could do some more work right here with InDesign, and then maybe some Photoshop work right here. I did save some examples right here for what I could show. And it's like, if anybody will warrant toward it, you want to see some further details about this, and that's like, yeah, that for anything that I do, that sometimes it seems like to where anything that you can imagine, and I'm like, really, that whenever I first came up with this idea about painting President Donald Trump, and just think about painting him, and then thinking about as to where anything that during his presidency, that anything that he's going to be it'll work out, making America great again. And I'm like, yeah, that for being a U.S. citizen, it seems like at the time that yeah, for all of our imagination, if it's all just what you call is just like, really, the difference between reality and then Hollywood, something about, for it's not really going to happen, it's not really true, or something about, that's just the talks or something like that. But let's just say that if the president could maybe say as to about the dreams, though, as to where anything about what you put your mind up for too. And for any sorts of artist, that whenever you first started working a painting, that maybe you were not able to get everything right, but whenever you start working a painting, it may not go by the requirements, or if it goes by the requirements, but still that you start talking about something, maybe about what you thought about the president's speech, or before he takes office, and thinking about is toward it, yeah, that for who you voted for back in November's election time, and then for the year of 2017, for what we want to see accomplished for the year 2017. And if anybody will warrant toward it, that based on your education, and then based on employment especially. And I kept thinking about it toward, yeah, that they hear lately that every once in a while I have these dreams about people being fascinated over my work. And it's like, yeah, that there are some other examples I may have seen about the presidents, or maybe about anything about politics or governors or anybody like that, anything related to candidates. And you're like Warren toward it, that even though if you were the first in line just to be able to get into a contest, if you want to go ahead and post up any work related to a contest or some sort, and let's just say that if I was picked to where, like, say that you're working, which I don't know, I'm like anybody who wants is toward it, that anything about maybe T-shirts, or maybe coins, or maybe trophies, or anything like that. That do you think that your work could maybe be published? And at the time, I asked myself that question a number of times, as to that how far does my artwork really need to go compared to where it is right now? And sometimes it seems like I could probably say that it requires us to where, like, a group of, say, of audiences, to where how other people look at the work, and like, say that I could tell anybody here, this is freehand work, this is not tracing. And if anybody wants us to where that, if we may assume as to where we look at this painting right here, and we're assuming that, yeah, you probably traced that. I'm like, no, I didn't trace that. I was looking at a picture, and I was glancing at a picture, but I was using the block brush and the brush tool just to be able to draw it, just to be able to paint this, and just to draw it out and paint it, and the details of the American flag right there also. So just knowing about where our future is going to be going in the next 4 or 5 years from now, based on technology, based on digital technology, and the way I think about it, though, is like, really, that just to try not to abuse it either, but if anybody will warrant to where that, what's the basic reason to why that for anything about what we can imagine, and sometimes, though, I feel that way, is toward that, I may think that something is toward I thought that it was make-believe, such as that, you want to go ahead and paint the picture of the former President Donald Trump, and then you want to go ahead and maybe paint like a theme in the background. You got right there is the American flag, but let's just say if I paint a shadow right there, knowing about his tour, that something about anything else, another topic that you want to talk about, and anybody that may want a tour, you can go ahead and do another one about Mike Pence, President Pence, and but still that for anything about what you call from where our country is going to be going, and for digital designing. And for my degree in digital designing, for being a U.S. citizen and for artist name right here. But I may only want to point this out right here for that for a signature though, that for anything that could be required. And if anybody were to ask that question as to where why is it that some of the stuff goes by the requirements? I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit more right here. But for anything about requirements though, so let's just say that if this right here was your President Trump right here, and let's just say that if he were to be what you call it, be presented on like anybody say that on your portfolio talking about politics, and let's just say that if you were to change the file size to about maybe 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 pixels, and does that make it stronger? And using digital technology, that I guess does that basically mean is to her that when we lower the pixels and then when we raise the pixels and make it more higher quality, based on digital work, and based on the amount of what we call for digital images, that the amount of pixels it contains, just to be able to if anybody wanted just to qualify, or if it's just to shows like the source of resolution about the pixels that are used, just to be able to fit to where that for a program that's able to recognize that image in particular. So if we were to change it to a higher pixel resolution, and does that mean is to where people are able to see it clearly, or that maybe that they want other prints, they want digital copy prints of this, or maybe if it's anything about anything about being published in the paper, that they need to have a picture painting that's up to at least 3,000 pixels, length and width, and then by the measure of the highest quality. And I could maybe assume that more likely for what it's talking about. And we see right here is this looks pretty clear from right here. But then if we were to lower that, then chances are that, for what the requirement could be is to where if it's going to be harder to see, or if it's all about is to where, oh, okay, well, that they want to see something more clear, or that something and I know that for any pixels that, if you're going to be changing the pixel settings, on like Photoshop, or if it's Illustration or any other source of digital software, that does that basically mean is toward that you are basically filling in the cookie jar. I'm like, if I can go ahead and maybe use a cookie jar as an example, to where that there are several pixels that contain in an artboard, to where that you gotta fill up, you gotta fill the amount of pixels it requires just to be able to it's like just to be able to fill in the picture frame for what's displayed in there. And I know that I have showed everybody here about some examples of some Dreamweaver work, so that knowing about for any pixels is to where that you add if you're able to set the digital image to a certain type of settings, and then chances are that you will be able to view that in maybe a higher quality, and maybe that if anybody say that would that change the color necessarily, or maybe just change the size. So this is right here talk about for digital technology, and I know like with anybody that if they're going to be reading any articles based on the Washington Post, that the number one problem they may encounter is to where if it's too blurry, so they want to go ahead and use it to zoom in and zoom out features, and the zoom in and zoom out, and basically that the zoom in and zoom out, that they're not able to read something until that they zoom in, and they're actually read a paragraph or two for what they're looking at, and then if you zoom out too far, then chances are I don't think that we will be able to see that on illustration, but I know on InDesign you'll be able to see that to where it looks like just lines. It looks like just marked off lines, but then if you zoom in clear enough, you will be able to read it. So that's just a thing about us, to where for digital software, based on my experiences, to where that if anybody warns us, toward if you're going to be looking at something just on paper, or maybe that if you want to go ahead and maybe say something, or maybe open it up using a different software program, and then chances are that you would be able to maybe change a little bit and maybe edit in a little bit. But still, though, that I really don't know if I really recommend anybody. I'm like, yeah, that for anything about digital software, for anything about what you call money, though, and for any credit cards or anything like that, is that not to do any editing and know about what it looks like whenever you add special effects. And so if anybody warns us, toward, do you want to go ahead and add some special effects? And I'm like, I can go ahead and try that real quick. And like I say, thanks for watching, everyone, and hope to join me, for the next set right here. Thanks for watching, May 25, and have a great day. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back, and you see right here, as I went and add in right there, is a little bit of special effects. I think sponge effect due to the color, and of course it was like, yeah, that you're doing just a little bit of After Effects with it. You can kind of see a little bit of the brush strokes right there, and for how I used the blog brush right there. But still, though, that if this was supposed to be like anything related to any source of a painting or some sort, and I warned to where, yeah, that using digital software like that, you'll be able to add your different effects, and then if, like, say, if you want to make it look like a little bit like, if you want to call it like a mosaic, and I know most of us have seen mosaics before, to where that different pieces that you put together just to be able to form anything related to a theme or something like that, or anything about character design or something like that. But you see right here is that with talking about for President elect Donald Trump here, and for year 2018, and I'm like, anybody warned to where, yeah, that it's like start talking about year 2017, but still, that for anything about what I can imagine what's going to be coming in the next year or two, and kept thinking about, well, really, that anything that you're able to come up with so far as what you want to include on your portfolio, that you're thinking is toward that maybe not everything that you make up is going to be what you call is like, well, really, that if you're the only one who can really if you're only one who can see, and then for anything for what you understand compared to what other people don't understand also. So based on the work that I do, and let's just say if somebody else were to find that, and then they may find it as interesting too, and then they may start question me about that as well. And it's like, yeah, that for any artist, maybe not all artwork is supposed to be maybe not all of it is about the fun, because there are some requirements and I guess some punishments about it also. But one of those punishments could be is to where, yeah, try not to spend so much time on it. You got to think about other things that you got to do also, and about the license that's used just to be able to use the software programs also. So let's just say that, yeah, that if this was a history project, and anybody that may warrant to where anything about what that you think that Donald Trump would say necessarily to the American people, and that you're like warrant to where that anything related to the Washington Post, and anything about about what you think that the president is going to do during this time, for like whenever he does take office. And but while I was reading through the paper here, I was just kind of glancing and getting some ideas here about for the altar for the head of the office of the government. I think told that the President Wednesday that he called Trump's pledge to step away from the management of his company. So I guess he's talking about whenever he takes office, I guess he's talking about that he won't be in charge of his company. I guess he'll be leaving somebody else in charge of his company or something, and then I guess for whatever he's planning on doing for America. And anybody may warrant toward it, yeah, that well, I guess what's the main concern about the matter about our education goes as well is toward it. Those who, and I know that it seems like almost every day that the presidents that may state is toward it, that for those who don't understand a lot about for what we do on an everyday basis, such as learning about, digital technology, about from where our books are going, and then from where, anything about a driver's license or anything electronically, that for where America is going, and for where this country is going to be going, so far as automobile and then energy sources, and as well as being able to afford stuff, and for jobs wise, for jobs, and I know that if anybody were warned toward it, yeah, that besides a signature though, is that based on digital software is toward it, if you're not very happy with your signature, the way that you dated something, and then they may say you can go ahead and go back and maybe change it, but still though, that you're for the basic requirements, and they may have these basic requirements, and some of those will be used toward, so that way the system would be able to recognize for what's on file, and for anything about what you have on file especially. So if anybody will warrant, or yeah, whenever you file your taxes, that what all do you think that you would have on file? And I can maybe say is to where, well, really, that anything such as paintings, and or I might say, yeah, about printouts. And I know that that's one thing I was also doing studying about too, is that that anything about printouts though that you want to keep on file, and I keep thinking though is to where really that while you're working on something, and let's just say if it's about maybe 18 or maybe 19 or 20 weeks later, that you didn't think anything of it, such as that now whenever people find it, and then they want to do research, and then like I said before, anything that works more likely, anything about what you do, and but still that but talking about for anything about U.S. citizens and for digital software, and for imaginable America is toward this the idea I came up with talking about for anything about digital work, that that if anybody will want to look at is toward it, yeah, that for what you can imagine that you're able to share to your audiences, such as for what you think the president, for what you think that the president is going to look like in the next 2 years from now, after they take office, and then knowing about is toward anything that they want to talk to, especially to the school kids, and anything about automobile industry, and as well as for how this country is going for making it great again. And I'm sure that President Trump is going to be a good president. And if anybody warns us that that for where you think that the country could be going in the next 5 years from now, based on anything that you thought was imaginable, such as to where you thought it was all make-believe, until that somebody else that became interested in it, and then they start asking you questions, or that they discover something else that maybe that yeah, that they thought it was all made up too. And what we call made up, and if anybody warns us that, yeah, what grade do you think that your teacher would give to you if you just make something up? And sometimes it's like, well, I'm going to have to take off 20 points, or maybe 15 points, because it's like that was not in the book. So let's just say if you were supposed to get some ideas, or maybe pick a topic from the book, and then if I didn't do that, then they would maybe take off some points too. But still, though, that I thought that maybe art was a lot of it was about creating and then imagining. But still, though, that if there's going to be a time to where you got to go by the requirements, but on the other hand, that for any source of painting, and let's just say there's a template that or a file that I would have to to use also, just for anything that I'm going to be working on. But talk about here for like this was right here was supposed to be in my work if I was presenting this, and if anybody say based on a school assembly, if you're going to be working on something, and have right here is like if you got like if you picked up a paper from about the paper I have, I think was from Thursday's I think it was a Thursday from this way, this last Thursday, yeah, it's a Thursday's paper from January the 12th, and let's just say by next week, and then by the 20th, before the inauguration, and if anybody say any school assemblies that could be going on maybe around March or April, and you're like Warren toward it, yeah, anything that you want to talk about based on about your work right here, and I'm like, oh, I got a lot to talk about. Well, let's hear it. Well, I was not planning on doing a presentation about it. I was just, I was just experimenting. But still, if anybody warns is that whenever you develop an idea and then you actually post the idea, and it's like sometimes that people start asking questions such as that, you open it up in Photoshop and then you open it up in InDesign, and then you may work it maybe in another Adobe program, and they're like thinking about is to where that you may realize later on that, oh, okay, well, you had the original saved, you saved the original, and then you got a JPEG saved on it, but then let's just say if you saved it to a GIF file or something, and that gets towards somebody else that they ask is toward it, oh, okay, well, we want to see this or we want to see that, and sometimes you feel like saying, listen, don't look at this work as like what you call a genie, as to where you have like a magic wand where you can do different magical power, source of After Effects. It's like so far as click click, voila, like voila. But anyway, don't look at this as to where anything about right before your eyes. This is what's going to happen. That you'll go ahead and make believe. The citizen, like anything about what you call it, that anything about digital work especially, and I don't know how far that this work is going to come along, other than that, like I say, is to where it comes far enough to where if you post it up on your portfolio, any work that you do, and then let's just say in the next 2 years from now that people may warrant toward anything about about the country though, so far as digital software, that whenever I was first introduced to digital software, that my first digital device would have been a digital camera, until I was introduced to another source of software until I did the studies though. And so that's just a thing that it seems like at the time that anything about what a designer does is toward it seems like that they got a bond with everything, anything that they're going to be doing on a daily basis. Talk about between mobile amps and as well as for digital software. And does that mean is toward your audience, anything about what your audiences think about your work, such as that they had to bond with your work as well? And what I mean by bond is toward that they had to what you call get interested toward it, that they want to spend an equal or a certain amount of time studying about for a little bit about what you do, and then for anything about for what they're curious about. And so I also keep thinking too is toward that that if anybody warns is that you would rather be looking at something on somebody's screen, rather be watching somebody as they work, or if you rather watch a video or anything like that. But anyway, but talk about say for the imaginable America, but still that one thing I did want to mention to anybody here, based on for the best explained ever videos I posted recently, is talking about for an artist though, is that an artist that may think is to where that they just made something up, and whenever you make something up, it seems like to where that does that mean that it's not real, or does that mean to where that it was something that it was an idea that you came up with for the future, or it's like you can't really see the future, at least not yet, but anything for what we call imaginable, and that's just a thing though, that whenever something that does really happen to where that you're dreaming about getting a promotion, and let's just say if you get a promotion, and then it's like think as to where that that you were thinking in the near future that this promotion is supposed to more likely happen by June of 2019, but then they're stating as to where that maybe within the next maybe 10 months or so, or maybe within the next maybe 12 weeks that a promotion can possibly happen. And so that's just a thing that anybody that may want to try to explain. And sometimes I feel that way to anything that I just make up or anything that I imagine, and then by the time it actually goes on and it actually happens, and then say that yeah, that for anybody who's going to be what you call surprised or just stunned at the matter, or that they're going to be what you call in the situation toward it, they just want to think about is toward it. They are used to looking at their own work, from their own devices until that they realize later on is toward, oh, okay, well, now it's here, like, and if anybody say this to where anything that they're going to be working on, if it's going to be renewing a driver's license or anything like that, that they say that they got plenty of time until that something else came up to where they had to take care of, and you're like warrant toward it, that for anything that you just think of it was imaginable, and you're like saying is toward it, really that you come up to a situation to where you see some of your work being broadcast on other websites and maybe available on other internet sites, and then at half the time, does that make we may warrant toward it? Does that make you feel proud, or does that make you feel like it's toward it? Yeah, well, it was just something that was optional that you were working on, or if it's anything, is it supposed to mean anything, to the American people? And so, for being a U.S. citizen, especially, if anybody will warrant toward it, for anything about imaginable America, that anything that I would want to say, especially, and for you to say for artist name, and anybody say, yeah, if you were going to school, or if you were still attending school, then what do you think that you want to tell them about the painting? And I'm like, really, about just knowing about this tour, that maybe being an artist, being a designer like me is maybe not all just about me, about for other people who want to learn about me, and for anything about for what makes me feel important to them as well. But other than that, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.